Alright, so we got a banger here. It's Tuivasa versus Greg Hardy. So Greg Hardy, he's a big guy. He's coming in with a 3-inch height advantage in this one and a 5.5-inch reach advantage, plus a 5.5-inch leg reach advantage. So yeah, he's a big guy for the weight class. He's going to have those advantages over a lot of heavyweights, and Tuivasa isn't the biggest heavyweight. Break down the striking of these two. So for Greg Hardy, he's very speedy. He's very fast for a heavyweight. Like, he's light on his feet. He's pretty agile, very athletic, obviously, coming from that NFL background. He's mostly throwing singular strikes. He likes to stick with the straight right or stick with the jab and then, move around. Used to be very aggressive, used to be very reckless, but I think since he's moved up his level of competition, he's become more defensive and more technical, in my opinion, which I think is good. Obviously working on his skills at ATT, one of the best gym in the world, in my opinion. Just so many bodies there, just so many elite fighters. But yeah, a lot of heavyweights there too, a lot of bodies that he can use to replicate Tai Tuivasa. Tai Tuivasa, he likes to walk his opponents down. He likes getting them near the cage, and then once he's near the cage, he'll throw a few hooks and then crash into the fence clinch from there. Disengage and rinse and repeat. And for Greg Hardy, he can keep his hands low in close range. I've noticed that in his fights, even later on as he's cleaned up his striking a little bit, he still does it. And Tai Tuivasa is always looking for that straight right when the opponent is close in distance. And he has a nice, a left hook to an overhand right against taller opponents. He used that very well against Stefan Struve, and I think he's going to look for the same combination in this fight because Greg Hardy is pretty big for the weight class. He's a tall guy, 6'5". And he will try and leverage that height by leaning back to avoid strikes, like a lot of tall fighters do that, like James Vick. Stefan Struve does it, I think. But yeah, tries to lean back, thinks he's so tall that no one's gonna be able to touch him with a wide overhand or something like that. But yeah, it just takes one at this weight class just to be caught, and I feel like Tai is gonna miss with the left hook as Greg Hardy's leaning back. But then, if Greg Hardy is gonna be caught, it's gonna be the right overhand as he catches him while he's leaning back, and Greg Hardy's hands do drop after throwing them. After he pops out the jab, he drops his lead hand. After he pops you with a straight right, his rear hand drops. So he's got to watch out for that. And he doesn't check leg kicks as well. And Tai Tuivasa, it's probably one of his favourite techniques, is the low calf kick. So I believe he should go to that in this fight. How these guys win fights, so for Greg Hardy, he's quick. The guy has the speed of a middleweight. He has the athleticism of a middleweight. He's so much more athletic than most of the heavyweights here. And he's, very fast. Both these guys have considerable power, and yeah, it's heavyweight. One punch can kill, but these guys do have good power. I would give this slight power advantage to Tai Tuivasa. I'll get into it later, but I'm not sure how concussive Greg Hardy's punches are, and I'll get into that in a sec. These guys lose fights, so for Greg Hardy, it's the strike and defense. Not very good, gets hit quite a bit, and at this weight class, you just can't afford those. It's just such a small margin for error, so you just can't do that. For Tai Tuivasa, it's the subpar takedown defense, and also his ground game leaves a lot to be desired. I think I could say the same thing about Greg Hardy, but both these guys, they're primarily strikers with poor ground game, so I'm guessing we're going to get a grappling match. Past the victory for these two, so for Greg Hardy, look to stay light on your feet, look to use a lot of movement. Tai Tuivasa had problems with the movement and the footwork of JDS and Orlovsky. So I think you could, I think he trains with both of those guys. Yeah, he trains with both those guys, so they're probably working on a game plan together that involves a lot of footwork and a lot of movement. Look to circle off the cage once he does try and pin you against the cage, just the same way JDS did. Look to stick and move, as I said, yeah, ties in with the keep light on your feet, lots of movement, and check the leg kicks. And for Tai Tuivasa, it's the low calf kicks. He doesn't check them, so just start throwing them. Cut the cage off as well. When you're pressuring, don't just follow him around. Look to extend your combinations as he's leaning back because his chin is exposed, as we talked about before. And then, press him against the fence, dirty boxing against the fence, clinch offense, just drain at the gas tank a little bit. How I see the fight going? So, very interesting fight here. Both seem to be in the best form of their respective careers. And for Hardy, he's improving leaps and bounds pretty much every time he steps into the octagon. And Tai, he seems to come in with game plans now. I think he's been training at better gyms, aka what have you. I'd like to see that be a permanent thing. I think it's doing wonders for his career. I'm talking about good game plans like stalking Stefan Struve against the fence, so it nullifies the reach advantage, plus he can't lean back, so then you can catch him there. But also chopping the lead leg down of an aggressive Harry Hunsucker, so you know where he's going to step, kick the lead leg out, but also you don't want him generating too much power off that lead leg as well, because that's where he gets the right overhand off. And for for Greg Hardy, as soon as Tybura attempted a double leg at the start of round 2, Hardy's forward movement and strike and volume basically stopped. Like, you could tell he was completely focused on when the next shot was coming and defending that. So that's just a little greenness coming through. Obviously, he's very young in his career. Got fast-tracked pretty much to the UFC. And Ty seems to be working hard on his grappling deficiencies at AKA. Seems to be taking shit a lot more seriously these days. Used to be kind of, brawler, doesn't matter what happens, but I think it was a bit of a reality check when he was lost 3 fights in a row against solid competition. And I think he's kind of switched back on now. And unless Ty has been working really hard on his offensive wrestling, I don't expect any takedowns in this fight. I think these big boys are going to bang, and I'm all here for it. But if, Tai Tuivasa wants to mix in the takedown, I think it could be good, because Greg Hardy totally changed his game plan when Tybura went for it. In the Yorgan De Castro fight, Yorgan was having a lot of success with the low calf kicks against Greg Hardy. Even before round 1 ended, Hardy was displaying visible discomfort on that lead leg. And then I think Yorgan De Castro broke his foot or something like that. And he couldn't do leg kicks anymore, but it was doing some serious damage to Hardy's lead leg. And the low calf kicks have been one of Tai Tuivasa's main weapons as of late. And Hardy, he does have a path to victory with the stick and move and the evasive movement that I talked about before. But I feel like he's going to stand in front of Tai, and he probably eats a lot of leg kicks, and he probably eats a few overhand rights. So, yeah, we get to see Hardy show that fighting spirit that we've seen, multiple times out of Tai. Like, the most adversity he's faced in the ring, or the cage, sorry, was when Tybura was on top of him, and we saw what happened there. The guy kind of covered up and got finished. Like, he obviously doesn't have too much of a ground game, probably felt pretty helpless, but yeah. He's obviously a tough guy, I believe he hurt his right hand or broke his right hand in the Volkov fight, and he toughed it out, kept throwing it. But we haven't seen him show too much resilience when things aren't going his way, because in the Volkov fight, he was just kind of fighting to survive. He wasn't really out there to win. He was just out there to survive, really. So I haven't seen too much resilience from Greg Hardy, but he's obviously a tough guy, no doubt about it. When he does find himself in bad situations, I feel like he's just kind of content in the fact that the fight's just going to be that way. Even, like, whether it is getting outpointed by Volkov or on the back versus Tybura. I think he just kind of accepts it and moves on to the next one and kind of checks out. So yeah, I think Tai Tuivasa catches Greg Hardy with an overhand right as Greg Hardy drops his hands. I think it's going to be late round 1. That's kind of how I've been visualizing it, but it should be a fun fight. Good test for Greg Hardy, and we'll see how he goes. Alright, so the prediction is Tai Tuivasa by TKO round 1. Wouldn't be surprised at an early round 2 stoppage, maybe even late round 2. I think it happens in either round 1 or 2. So bets I was looking at was Tai Tuivasa at $1.80 or minus 125. I think that's good value. Greg Hardy, I think he definitely does have a path to victory here, and he definitely could win. So if he was like plus 150 or $2.50, I'd hit that. But yeah, not really where I want it at the moment. But I hit Tai Tuivasa a little bit prematurely at $1.77 or whatever that is, like minus 130 or whatever. And I'm pretty happy. I'm fine with that. But if I was a little bit more disciplined, then maybe I would have waited till $1.80. But it doesn't look like it's coming around. So it is what it is. Could you guys like and subscribe? A fair amount of work gets put into these videos. They take a fair amount of time. So it'd be awesome if you guys could like and subscribe and help the YouTube search algorithm.